Thank you everyone for joining in. A very good afternoon. On behalf of ASSOCHAM Women Council and Wellspun Group, I welcome you all for the first session of our series called Sustainability First. Before we begin, formally with our session, I would like to share a small introduction of the ASSOCHAM Women Council. With Ms. Dipali Goenka as the chairperson of the council, ASSOCHAM is working towards empowering and adding more women to the India's workforce. So we have charted out 5-step agenda for the council. One is addressing sustainability and climate change, improving the health and nutrition of women and children, promoting women-led businesses, promoting women in STEM, and women inclusion for economic empowerment. Through this series, the Sustainability First, we at Women Council are taking step towards bringing together industry's best to come and share their insights for taking concrete steps to address sustainability and climate change. So
Thank you very much for being here today. I just want to begin by saying that the last few years have been a study in contrasts. As information has proliferated, so has consumption and so has pollution. And there has also been a large reduction in biodiversity. A lot of these things now have come to the fore as everybody is really concerned about climate change and the fact that it is accelerating and people are very, very concerned about it. Circularity, water, energy, traceability are going to play an enormous role in the post-COVID world. What are the top 3 things that you think are needed to accelerate the move towards sustainability? Thomas, would you like to go ahead on that?
So thank you, Namrata. I think as you rightly said, I think sustainability is a multifaceted thing. And we have been now thrown into a situation where something which none of us ever conceived, which is the COVID-19 pandemic, it has virtually brought the world as we know it to a standstill. I mean, I can be more dramatic and say that it's brought everyone on their knees, literally, and changed the way people live, that changed the way people work. So while I wouldn't say that the virus is really something which is an act of unsustainability or has arisen from that, because nobody really knows, is it something which was engineered in a laboratory and set free or just leaked out? So nobody really knows. So I'm not going to talk about the pandemic as a result of any of these unsustainable acts, but suffice to say that the pandemic has changed the way the world works and lives, and it's going to create significant changes in lifestyles. It's going to cause significant changes in the way people travel or not travel, and a host of other changes. But coming to the subject that we have at hand, which is on sustainability, I think very clearly what is most important, given the reality we are living in today, the pandemic, is the safety and security of all the people in our value chain and our supply chains. And when I say safety and security, I think it becomes the topmost priority to ensure that not only just you, your families, your employees, their families, but the entire ecosystem in which you operate, whether it is your suppliers, whether it is your, other stakeholders, it could be your customers in many cases. We have to see that this larger ecosystem and the value chain and the supply chain is brought together and integrated, and all the practices of a healthy healthy beginning of commerce and business should be sustained, so that it can be sustainable, has to happen. So that's first priority. The second priority, of course, is that as we are seeing, our country has just been shaken by two major hurricanes, and we have already seen the devastating effect of some of the hurricanes in the last couple of years in the US. And I think climate change is here to stay, and therefore all the practices, that whether it is on carbon footprint or on reducing greenhouse gases, with the ultimate aim of reducing the temperature increase, which seems to be at the current rate of growth, seems to be going to cross well over the 1.5% increase in temperature, which was what was envisaged in the Rio summit, and is going to cause havoc worldwide with the rising oceans. So I think the carbon footprint and the impact on the environment of what we do or what we don't do is going to be equally important. And third, of course, and something which is very dear to me, is the fact that I think most people don't realize, because we are always talking about climate change and we are always talking about greenhouse gases, but the impact of water and the non-availability of drinking water for a good percentage of people on this planet, even as soon as 2035, 2040, is going to be one of the biggest concerns the world is going to face. So in all, I would say that, these are, in my view, three of the biggest challenges that we face going forward. And of course, the pandemic changes the baseline for most of our businesses. Thank you.
That's so interesting, because you mentioned the fact that water availability is going to be a very big challenge. So it's heat and it's water, both are the two most important things. Barbara, you've been working in the agricultural ecosystem for a while. And I think that also links to the fact that food security is also going to be a very important issue, as well as our ability to grow food in the right way, in less pesticides, being conscious of the fact that how we are using natural resources for the kind of foods that need to be grown. So what are the three most important things for you that can make us far more sustainable than what we really are right now?
Hi, thank you, Namrata. So I think first, as an organization, we have been acting very similar, like mentioned Thomas in Aditya Birla, that first we just acted concerning the security and safety in all our projects, not just agriculture, but in general, we are doing international development projects. So we operate across the world and we travel a lot. So when the pandemic was rising, we were having very quick moves and prevention of flying to not get trapped. So we were very concerned about all our employees to be safe and not disconnected from their families. So first was the safety security, then was the immediate business continuity, and we immediately tried to adjust our existing projects. And now we are kind of looking at a long-term strategy that is linked with our core in general, because we are all what we do is impact-driven solutions. So it's kind of, we are creating these solutions for the different stakeholders in the ecosystem. Now, coming to a question, in particular in agriculture, right? So we have been working on the largest agri-skilling program in Maharashtra. And as part of the program, we are supporting farmers with the market linkages. Now, suddenly, because of pandemic, there were disrupted supply chains. So we acted on that front. We also supported linkage of the farmers with their local markets in a better way. So that was the immediate. At the same time, we've been working on a food security strategies for several countries and how basically they can solve their immediate challenges in the disrupted supply chains, and how they can actually look into long-term investment to balance what they produce locally and where they need to invest and get their production from abroad. So for example, for the Middle East, we've been working with several Middle Eastern investors looking and strengthening their linkages in India. And they've been doing the investment recently in some of the essential commodities like rice and the grains. But I think potentially it will be about how you secure food supply for your own community, and also understanding what is the minimum required, and maybe a little bit reshuffle. I would say that a lot of people realize that if they have a little garden or terrace or something, they can do their kitchen gardening, right? So I think this definitely became a trend, and one of our sister company, they basically had 10 times increase in the online training for the kitchen gardening.
Wow. And so growing plants.
In Angola, for example, they mentioned that they sold out seeds 6 times more than any other time this year.
My God, that's a lot. And so there's certain things and certain trends that have accelerated because of this disruption, and there are certain things that have fallen down. And the one discussion that I've been having with a lot of people is the need to grow more trees. And it's fascinating because at the same time, land is finite. You can grow a certain amount of food on it. You can grow a certain amount of crops and trees that can be used for other materials, say for instance viscose in the case of Aditya Birla. And you can also use land for multiple other things. So it's interesting, Thomas. I've been reading a lot about the sustainable forestry that the Aditya Birla Group does. So what does it really mean, and what are the challenges as well as the opportunities in terms of managing forests well, and then forests acting as carbon sinks as well?
Yeah, so very good question, Namrata, and it's been my privilege to work a good number of years in every role in the pulp and fiber business, and probably one of the few in the world which has played all the roles. I've played the marketing head role, manufacturing head role, pulp business head role, and ran a plantation in Laos. So, and ran pulp plants in Canada. So, to cut a long story short, I think the effort of the organization called Canopy, as you know, and the Forestry Stewardship Council, is really to ensure that ancient and endangered forests are not affected negatively. That's really, the sum and substance of what Canopy and the Forest Stewardship Council really stands for. So I must tell you a story. When I was at Harrier, I looked after the Harrier, which is the pulp and plantation business of Aditya Birla Group in India. And when I looked after that, I think the amount of work that we did around clonal research on both seeds as well as plants, and the amount of new clonal plants we used to plant around Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, because they were adjacent to each other. We really grew the forest cover, or the green cover, let's call it the green cover. It may not really be the forest cover. And we made eucalyptus plantation a very sustainable business for the farmers. And we ensured that, the planting techniques, the seeds, the plants that we gave, because we used to develop something like 4 crore plants. 4 crores is, is a very large sum of plants we used to give away to farmers to plant on our behalf. And we had no commitment other than saying that there was no written agreement with the farmers, excepting to say that we will be there to buy the eucalyptus wood back when it is ready for harvesting. The cycle used to be 7 years. So I think a lot of work, particularly in India, I mean, work began by Grasim, that to Harrier, and then of course a lot of work done by ITC for their Bhadrachalam paperboard units. They also done a lot of plantation work, led to really creation of a large green sink. So basically a fantastic oxygen source for some of the states like Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, and in a sense, Andhra and adjoining Orissa. So I think the Forestry Stewardship Council and Canopy have identified just 3 or 4 large companies which are what they call green shirts. And these in the pulp and fiber business, I believe Birla Cellulose, we are leading, and I'm very proud of that because I was associated with every aspect of the business for years. And I believe Lenzing is also right up there. Enka is there. Chinese companies are still not up there, barring I think Tangshan, which is probably in that list of green or almost green buttons, as they call them, or green shirts. So I would say that it is not just about green cover. It is not just about affecting ancient and endangered forests. It is about ensuring that every practice that you follow leads to a sustainable outcome. So whether it is seeds, whether it's clonal plants, whether it is agricultural practices, whether it is a practices with respect to the farmers, because you see in India, farmlands are very, the holdings of farmers is very small. The average holding won't be more than 2.5 acres. It's not like the United States where you go and see a farmer has got 1,000 acres or 2,000 acres or 5,000 acres. I mean, that's virtually not the scene here. Or as I did in Laos, where I went and got, about 100,000 and 150,000 hectares of land from the Lao government by getting a legislature passed in their assembly. So I think in India, the challenges are very myriad because you're dealing with small farmers. For him, agricultural produce of whatever sort is very, very important. And therefore, it really is his livelihood. And therefore, I think ensuring the best transfer of technology, the best plants for him to put in his limited land, ensuring that these give him high yield, ensuring that you teach him the best practices of growing eucalyptus so that you get a good output after 7 years, ensuring that they don't cut these when they are young, because many times because of wood shortage they cut it, and to ensure that there's a continuous process of replenishment so that you are not in any way affecting the green cover. In fact, your planting should be well ahead of your extraction to ensure sustained forestry, basically. So this is my view on forestry, and I think we have been very mindful at the Aditya Birla Group. I think my pulp and fiber business teams, including the senior management, has been really working very hard, and I'm told that in the canopy list, they're #1 in terms of practices.
I mean, that's really interesting because what you're talking about is the fact that you plan this process ahead. So you've got to look ahead. You have a 7-year horizon in the case of eucalyptus. And I'm sure that is there are different time horizons for different kinds of, trees that are planted and plants and so on. But Barbara, I believe Palladium is doing a fabulous project in the Amazon. So would you like to tell us a little bit about that and what have been your experiences so far in terms of, ensuring that forests act as carbon sinks, and what is it that needs to be done around it?
Right. So we've been working on one beautiful program called Partnership for Forest. It's actually a UK-aid program that we are managing as an implementing agency. And it's working across, I think, around 30 countries around the world. And basically the reforestation. And I completely agree the importance of working with the forest, but to ensure the ecosystem works well, I think we are looking at that smallholder farmer is the center of the focus, right? And all the interventions about how to change his status quo. But very importantly, this program has basically ensured the participation of the private sector, because at the end, that's the real world, right? So you need to bring the government, the donors, the small landholder farmers, and the strong private players to invest in betterment, right? So we've raised so far 183 million of private sector capital investments. And so far, I think the estimated savings on the CO2 equivalent is 250 million tons. Now, this large program that we're running for several years, and it's going to continue for 3 more years, also inspired of how Palladium as a company can offset our emissions that are produced, because in our core of our business, we do a lot of flights, we do a lot of flying and electricity. So these two things were our biggest environmental impact, plus of course the use of paper and minimizing the office work actually. So we started different programs like working from home several days, so people don't have to travel, so their individual emissions are minimized. And from the travel perspective, so we basically calculated what is our CO2 emissions as a company. It was a huge exercise, almost I think several months it took us. And based on that, we identified that we invested in a redevelopment of the 40 hectares in Peruvian Amazon. So in that project, we work with the local community of indigenous people, and especially we are focusing on women participation, because their husbands, most of them are migrant workers, they might not be at home. So actually women section are a strong proportion of the working group in the forestry. So we work with a local NGO, very strong NGO, that is working all their purpose is to work on the Peruvian Amazon, that is the 4th largest. And with them, we basically deliver training programs to these women and help them establish their agroforestry. So therefore, we also increase the income. So it's a beautiful project that not only offsets our carbon footprint as a company, but also helps to bring social impact to the livelihoods of the indigenous people in Peruvian Amazon. So that we do as a company to offset our footprint. And I mean, as a core of our business, we are delivering large-scale projects that are, as you said, doing the mixed use, crop use, mixed crops, and agroforestry, aiming to redevelop or rejuvenate the forests and regain the, I would say, the coverage of the forest and strength. One more project that is very interesting is the Cocoa Alliance, because I don't know if you know, but the cocoa farmers are the largest group that are the smallest agro farmers, and it's the challenge across all the continents. So we've been working so far across 2 continents on the cocoa supply chain. So from the situation that everyone in the world wants to eat more chocolate, and on the other hand, we have starving farmers, because many times the quality of the cocoa that they are producing is not accepted, so they can't sell it, or they sell it at very bad rates. So we actually managed in this beautiful program of 4 years to double their income and increase the quality of the chocolate, bring some more specialized type of chocolate flavors right from the source.
So what I'm hearing is that things that are good for the planet can also be revenue generating projects for people at the grassroots. So in a way, these can be qualified as green jobs or sustainable jobs. Would I be right in saying that?
Right. And I think you're right. The key is to look at the ecosystem holistically. And I think Thomas mentioned in his opening statement, and I like that if you look at your interventions as organizations or even as a CSR, whatever it is, if you look at this intervention more holistically, engaging the local people, local communities, and thinking of a bigger picture or supply chain, then you can really make ecosystem impact, not only environmental, but also social, economical, in all aspects.
In all aspects. Thomas, I'm also curious to understand how an organization like yours is now evaluating risks. So as per and almost all organizations have started doing materiality assessments. They're starting to look at the top issues that are key. And there's one thing that I've realized, that many people that we know are reevaluating risks, and they're saying climate change is the most important thing in terms of a risk assessment right now. And there's somebody who very interestingly just quoted in the Financial Times. He said that those who played down the warnings of the plague have now received a taste of what it is like if they continue to ignore scientists' warnings about a far greater scourge to humanity, which is climate change. Would you agree with that? And is that also a priority for your group?
Just give me a minute. I think two things. One is you asked a number of questions, so let me try and address them. I'll address the last first. I think the whole effort of the World Council to come together to define the SDRs, the social development goals, SDGs, is a step in the right direction. And most of these are scientifically measurable and monitorable, which means, many times you say what you can't measure and what you can't capture never gets tracked. So the SDGs, when broken down into scientific targets, are easy to measure. And I think the SDGs are very good. They are very intelligently looked at all the areas which have a bearing on sustainability around the world. And I think it is high time that our politicians or the people who matter, who make these decisions, listen to the scientists. And I'm not only talking about on climate change, but I'm also talking on food security and a number of other issues. We really need to listen to our scientists. And that is why the whole SDGs are really based on what we call science-based targets. Coming to what is our journey, we started in the group quite late, actually. It was only in 2013 that our chairman came out with an enabling vision saying that he would like all the businesses in the Aditya Birla Group to be amongst the best-in-class businesses on sustainability by 2017. And this was in 2012-13. So gave us a corridor of 4 years. And believe me, when I started this journey, because I'm generally very, very, I'm very passionate and I like to do some things with a lot of energy and vigor. So I really started off the journey for my textile businesses in a big way, I would say only by around 2012-13. I'm really happy that, probably in the last, now it's going to be 7 years. In the last 7 years, I think we've really made an enormous journey, but it's still a journey. I don't think we've reached the destination. I think there's still a lot more that needs to be done. Firstly, to say that I'm extremely proud that we could bring up the companies around the world. I have 12 operating plants. I'm only talking about my business. Of course, the group has 200 plants operating in 38 countries. So I have in 7 countries, I have 12 plants operating. So I think the first thing was to get basic understanding of what sustainability is all about. And it took a while. But I'm really glad that we have now amongst a few companies in the world which have been publishing our GRI reports for every unit for the last 5 years. So you can find my GRI reports in the Global Reporting Initiative of every unit of mine for the last 5 years. And I think we are amongst the forerunners in Aditya Birla Group now in terms of sustainability practices. We have made a long journey in terms of cutting our greenhouse gases, moving away from fossil fuels, going to non-conventional sources of energy, cutting down our water consumption, and cutting down waste. And the interesting thing is, these get actually monitored at a board level. So this is no longer good to have or nice to feel. Everything gets monitored monthly at an operational level in our operational SNOPs. It gets reviewed at the board level. It gets reviewed in the meetings of all the CEOs with me. There is a lot of seriousness about sustainability metrics. And it's not only about this, it's also about safety violations. It's about lost time in incidents, LTIs, and so on and so forth. So the metrics for measuring sustainability has become very, very cogent and comprehensive. And it's a learning process. We keep learning. And the good news also is that, there used to be, over a long period of time, a lot of mystery around these sustainability parameters, because as you know, some of them deal with regulations, and you have regulations for gas emission, you have regulations for water discharge into a water body, right? But the good news is that by using things like Enablon, we are now as a group virtually online with every parameter which is of bearing to a country, to a state, to a municipality, and to a business. And therefore, there is huge amount of transparency now, because it's all captured online on Enablon, every bit of data on environmental compliances, regulatory compliances, etc. So I think it's been a long journey. We set ourselves science-based targets. We set ourselves specific targets for energy reduction, water reduction, waste reduction, LTI reduction, that's lost time incidents. So, there is a huge focus on safety and sustainability. It is no longer a slogan in the Aditya Birla Group. And there is a huge amount of pressure to see that we emerge as a company which has sustainable practices, that we follow sustainable practices, and ensure that over a period of time, we endear ourselves to our customers as being a company which is extremely, excessively focused on doing the right things for the planet. So I think that's really been the journey of the Aditya Birla. I hope I've answered your question, Namrata.
Yeah, in part, yes, but it's fascinating to listen to the sustainability journey of such a large conglomerate such as yours. The discussion world over post-pandemic has also been about the stimulus that has been given. And in many countries, they're talking about a green recovery. And I'm not necessarily talking about the fact that, we should prioritize renewable energy over everything else, but genuinely talking about green jobs, promoting things that are far more sustainable, and especially in Europe. Germany's where they're talking about green jobs. The UK is discussing it very, in a great level of detail, and they've also promoted certain things. Barbara, do you have any thoughts on what is it that a green recovery really means, and what is it that needs to be prioritized for a country and for a company to actually become green?
Right. So I completely agree with you. The whole, I would say, opportunity in this situation is that everyone has an opportunity to kind of reimagine the business and the society or the community. And the reimagination, right, should be towards the green business, green community, or green economy, right? So we've been supporting governments to develop their green economy aspirations, rules, policies that promote green economy. So that means focusing on green jobs, basically supporting, catalyzing those sectors that can bring the green economy, and also helping the others to adjust and motivate them, give them some incentives. And we've been also working at the city level, right? So we've been working on the the city level incentivization for green jobs, recreation of the different new, I would say, ways of being environmentally friendly as an organizations or businesses that are in the city, but also for individuals as citizens, right? How they individually contribute and understand their environmental impact. And it goes from waste, water, through energy use, and I would say the whole way of how you live actually. So you start thinking about it, and that was the great benefit of the pandemic, that everyone actually had the chance to stop and realize how big impact we are creating on a nature in our normal way of living. And it kind of allow us to start thinking that we can reimagine our lives and we can do things differently. It gives us also that courage that it is possible. We don't have to always be working from office, right, to create a value. Unfortunately, it's not the case for everyone. And I think, especially in India, that it's not very socially supported state, right? There is a huge social imbalance. It's been very challenging, and I'm really concerned because most of the jobs in a country like India are daily wagers and are physical jobs, right? So while in Western world, the economies is much more digital, they are able to produce. And I would say huge conglomerates like Aditya Birla, they are advanced. So it is a bit easier for them to manage and do better. It is very concerning for the smaller companies that all their existence is based on the physical touch and and existence. So I think we are advising on basically 4 principles that to reimagine your business, because many companies should rethink how they are approaching, and the same thing is for the governance, right? So first is to be bold, try to really think holistically. What can I just change the products, or I really need to change the business on its own? So if, for example, the hospitality businesses might need to really rethink how they completely change their business. And the second thing is that the need for collaboration among different actors and different players together to kind of survive and find a new opportunity of growth. Bringing the capital. So it is also government responsibility to help and catalyze some investments into the economy that are in the right space towards the green economy, and helping the small entrepreneurs, medium entrepreneurs to shift their focus and shift it in the right way, motivate them in the right way, use the opportunity of reimagining the rural India, right? It doesn't have to be naturally that only several hundred cities have to be there, but more cities in India should grow and the rural India should become stronger. So I think there is now a focus on the reinvestment, and I think that's the right thing, reinvesting in the rural India, reintegrating the skilled people who came back from the cities. They know where they can grow. They've already been a little bit more open-minded, and they understood where the rural community can grow. And I think very important is that this whole reimagination in India has to happen at the community level. It's a country where community is very important compared to European cultures, right? Where the units, family are the units and so on. So here it's really more of a community. So even the interventions from the state, from the government, should be towards the community. So it helps the community to reinvent itself. And
the women in the
exactly, yes. And if you look at the community, women can participate. The current challenge is that women and the people with special needs got more, I would say, first might have lost the jobs, right? But the importance is to integrate them quickly back, because if we have women in the economy will definitely revive better. It should bring the perspective of women participation and inclusion in the economic activities.
Certainly, and that's a very important point, because the more women that come into the workforce, the more women that get involved, it'll increase the footprint of sustainability as well as livelihoods, and green jobs can actually contribute a lot to the GDP. Thomas, do you have any thoughts on this in terms of the role of the community and the role of women in sustainability?
Yeah, I think firstly, no business is an island. It doesn't exist in isolation. And the role of the community is very, very crucial. And I think many people do not really understand the importance of community because, frankly, it is the communities which are contiguous to your plants who give you a license to operate. And I think many people forget this because if it was not for them and their consent, you would not be operating a large plant in any place. So I think being mindful of the community is one of the most important elements for any leadership to ensure that you have a very symbiotic and a very synergistic relationship with the community, where you help the community and in turn the community provides people to work in your plant and they provide you virtually the social license to operate. And so the role of the community is crucial. And I think the more companies that become mindful of this, it will definitely help in a long way to create a better society, to create a better business environment. Coming to the role of women, I think, I'm one of those persons who believes that having more and more women in our enterprises is always good for us. And I think the role of women in a plant setup is also huge because, the amount of women empowerment and the consequence it has on families, on the nuclear families, and we fund large number of self-help groups across the country. I think our the touch points for us in terms of community and contiguous communities is, I think, runs into about 8 million or 10 million people. I don't remember the exact number, but it's huge. That's the kind of people's lives we touch. And just to give you an example, in Thailand, I operate a plant in a district called Saraburi. It's an acrylic fiber plant. And in Saraburi, we set up almost a decade ago, or a little more than a decade ago, we set up what we call the Aditya Birla Knowledge Center. And the Aditya Birla Knowledge Center, and it's run by my company there. I mean, this particular center, because it's in the district where I have the plant. This particular center equips people with skills. So we have a large center where there's a participation by the governors and the district of Saraburi, where we organize courses on many vocational trainings. We organize courses, we certify them free of cost, we help them develop livelihoods, so the concept of self-help groups, and at the end of the day we make them financially independent to stand on their own feet. Now, and we find that a large number of the people who come forward are women. And that's why I'm taking this example. And we've always seen that the impact of educating or skilling women has, I think, a multiplier effect on all economies, including rural economies. And so, yes, I think it's very, very crucial. And I think the more and more that we can think about empowering our women and ensuring that policies around engaging with communities and helping communities build a sustainable business model going forward is very, very crucial. That's my belief.
Thank you so much. So what I've understood from our conversation really is that sustainability is many things. It can be at one level, it can be about low carbon. It can also be about sustainable growth, livelihoods. sustainability in the form of business sustainability as well as equity, health, and well-being for everyone. And the fact is that we've been taking so many things for granted. Sorry?
Inclusiveness. Yeah. Inclusiveness in the whole aspect.
And we've been taking all these things for granted all these years. And now it's all coming together to us in terms of saying that, you know, we really need to make a change. And India was built on this vision of equity and inclusiveness for everyone, as well as the fact that India lived in its villages. And the Gandhian philosophy of actually building the grassroots and building livelihoods in the village was considered very, very important. Maybe there is some merit in us thinking about this once again and honoring the legacy of the founding fathers of our country. So as part of ASSOCHAM Women's Council, I would really like to thank you, Barbara and Thomas, for being here and sharing your thoughts with us. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Namrata, and thank you, Barbara.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.